Chapter 3 of The Children of the New Forest. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Gary Gilbert. The Children of the New Forest by Frederick Marryat. Chapter 3. The next morning, as soon as Jacob had given the children their breakfast, he set off toward Arnwood. He knew that Benjamin had stated his intention to return with the horse and see what had taken place, and he knew him well enough to feel sure that he would do so. He thought it better to see him if possible, and ascertain the fate of Miss Judith. Jacob arrived at the still smoking ruins of the mansion, and found several people there, mostly residents within a few miles, some attracted by curiosity, others busy in collecting the heavy masses of lead which had been melted from the roof, and appropriating them to their own benefit. But much of it was still too hot to be touched, and they were throwing snow on it to cool it, for it had snowed during the night. At last Jacob perceived Benjamin on horseback, riding leisurely toward him, and he immediately went up to him. "Well, Benjamin, this is a woeful sight. What is the news from Lymington?" "Lymington is full of troopers, and they are not over-civil," replied Benjamin. "And the old lady, where is she?" "Ah, that's a sad business," replied Benjamin. "And the poor children, too." "Poor Master Edward, he would have made a brave gentleman." "But the old lady is safe," rejoined Jacob. "Did you see her?" "Yes, I saw her. They thought she was King Charles, poor old soul." "But they have found out their mistake by this time?" "Yes, and James Solwood has found it out too," replied Benjamin. "To think of the old lady breaking his neck." "Breaking his neck? You don't say so. How was it?" "Why, it seems that Southwold thought that she was King Charles dressed up as an old woman. So he seized her and strapped her fast behind him, and galloped away with her to Lymington. But she struggled and kicked so manfully that he could not hold her, and off they went together, and he broke his neck." "Indeed, a judgment upon a traitor," said Jacob. They were picked up, strapped together as they were, by the other troopers, and carried to Lymington. "Well, and where is the old lady then? Did you see and speak to her?" "I saw her, Jacob, but I did not speak to her. I forgot to say that. When she broke Southwold's neck, she broke her own too." "Then the old lady is dead?" "Yes, that she is," replied Benjamin. "But who cares about her? It's the poor children that I pity. Martha has been crying ever since. I don't wonder." "It was at the Cavalier, and the troopers were there, and they were boasting of what they had done, and called it a righteous work. I could not stand that, and I asked one of them if it were a righteous work to burn poor children in their beds. So he turned round and struck his sword upon the floor, and asked me whether I was one of them. 'Who are you, then?' And all my courage went away, and I answered, 'I was a poor rat-catcher.' 'A rat-catcher, are you? Well, then, Mr. Rat-catcher, when you are killing rats, if you find a nest of young ones, don't you kill them too? Or do you leave them to grow and become mischievous, eh?' 'I kill the young ones, of course,' replied I. 'Well, so do we malignants wherever we find them.' I didn't say a word more, so I went out of the house as fast as I could." "Have you heard anything about the king?" inquired Jacob. "No, nothing, but the troopers are all out again, and I hear are gone to the forest. Well, Benjamin, good-bye. I shall be off from this part of the country. It's no use my staying here. Where's Agatha and Cook?" "They came to Lymington early this morning." "Wish them good-bye for me, Benjamin." "Where are you going, then?" "Can't exactly say, but I think London way. I only stayed here to watch over the children, and now that they are gone I shall leave Arnwood forever." Jacob, who was anxious on account of the intelligence he had received from the troopers being in the forest, to return to the cottage, shook hands with Benjamin and hastened away. "Well," thought Jacob, as he wended his way, "I'm sorry for the poor old lady, but still, perhaps, it's all for the best. Who knows what they might do with these children? Destroy the nest as well as the rats. Indeed, they must find the nest first." And the old forester continued his journey deep in thought. We may here observe that, bloodthirsty as many of the levellers were, we do not think that Jacob Armitage had any grounds for the fears which he expressed and felt. That is to say, we believe that he might have made known the existence of the children to the Villiers family, and that they would never have been harmed by anybody; that by the burning of the mansion they might have perished in the flames had they been in bed, as they would have been at that hour, had he not obtained intelligence of what was about to be done. 'Tis true. But that there was any danger to them on account of their father having been such a staunch supporter of the king's cause is very unlikely, and not borne out by the history of the times. But the old forester thought otherwise. He had a hatred of the Puritans, and their deeds had been so exaggerated by rumour that he fully believed that the lives of the children were not safe. Under this conviction, and feeling himself bound by his promise to Colonel Beverley to protect them, Jacob resolved that they should live with him in the forest, and he brought up his own grandchildren. He knew that there could be no better place for concealment, for, except the keepers, few people knew where his cottage was, and it was out of the usual paths, and so embosomed in lofty trees that there was little chance of its being seen, or being known to exist. He resolved, therefore, that they should remain with him till better times, and then he would make known their existence to the other branches of the family, but not before. "I can hunt for them and provide for them," thought he, "and I have a little money. When it is required, I will teach them to be useful. They must learn to provide for themselves. There's the garden and the patch of land. In 2 or 3 years the boys will be able to do something. I can't teach them much, but I can teach them to fear God. We must get on how we can, and put our trust in Him who is a father to the fatherless." With some thoughts running in his head, Jacob arrived at the cottage, and found the children outside the door, watching for him. They all hastened to him, and the dog rushed before them to welcome his master. "Down, Smoker, good dog. Well, Mr. Edward, I have been as quick as I could. How have Mr. Humphrey and your sisters behaved? But we must not remain outside to-day, for the troopers are scouring the forest, and may see you. Let us come in directly, for it would not do that they should come here." "Will they burn the cottage down?" inquired Alice, as she took Jacob's hand. "Yes, my dear, I think they would, if they found out that you and your brothers were in it. But we must not let them see you." They all entered the cottage, which consisted of 1 large room in front, and 2 rooms for bedrooms. But there also a 3rd bedroom, which was behind the other 2, but which had not any furniture in it. "Now let's see what we can have for dinner. There's venison left, I know," said Jacob. "Come, we must all be useful. Who will cook?" "I will cook," said Alice, "if you will show me how." "So you shall, my dear," said Jacob, "and I will show you how. Here's some potatoes in the basket in the corner, and some onions hanging on the string. We must have some water. Who'll fetch it?" "I will," said Edward, who took a pail and went out to the spring. The potatoes were peeled and washed by the children. Jacob and Edward cut the venison into pieces. The iron pot was cleaned, and then the meat and potatoes were put with water into the pot and placed on the fire. "Now I'll cut up the onions, for they'll make your eyes water." "I don't care," said Humphrey. "I'll cut and cry at the same time." And Humphrey stood up with a knife and cut away most manfully, although he was obliged to wipe his eyes with his sleeve very often. "You are a fine fellow, Humphrey," said Jacob. "Now we'll put the onions in and let it all boil up together. Now you see, you have cooked your own dinner. Ain't that pleasant?" "Yes," cried they all, "and we will eat our own dinners as soon as it is ready." "Then, Humphrey, you must get some of the platters down which are on the drawer. And Alice, you will find some knives in the drawer. And let me see, what can little Edith do? Oh, she can go to the cupboard and find the salt cellar. Edward, you must look out, and if you see anybody coming or passing, let me know. We must put you all on guard till the troopers leave the forest." The children set about their tasks, and Humphrey cried out, as he very often did, "Now this is jolly." While the dinner was cooking, Jacob amused the children by showing them how to put things in order. The floor was swept,